True Crime with a case update. So, over the last couple of days, I have been talking about a missing 2-year-old out of Greensboro by the name of Calli Horner. Her mother, Khadijah Horner, was flat out refusing to give any information about her, and now we know what is going on. So, if you've not already hit subscribe on this channel, please do so. If you are new, welcome. This is a true crime channel about cases, old, new, present, historical, whatever you want to call it. And if you've been here before, welcome. I'm glad to see you back. So let's get into this. So Calli Horner went missing. We thought April 30th. The date of missing has been up in the air because no one was really quite sure when the last time she was seen. But April 30th was when it was first noticed she wasn't around. And then May 14th, the extended family, filed a missing person report. Police did a welfare check. Calli would not give them any information. Uh, she kept making excuses that the child was with her father or with her um, extended family or friends, and nobody was coming forward with this child. So it comes out yesterday that Calli Horner has been adopted out to a family in Utah. Yes, Utah. Now, Greensboro police got in touch with Utah police and they went to the home where Calli is and they did put eyes on her and she is well. But so many questions have come up about this case, like how did she do this? You know, her own father was looking for her. What's going on? How did she pull this off with this child having a dad? Extended family wanting to know where this kid is, and why did she lie about the whole thing in the first place? That's the other question. Why did she lie? Hi, Sean. I am talking about the missing child case of Calli Horner out of Greensboro, North Carolina. She's been found, and she's alive. But we're going to go into some particulars about this because it's very confusing where this kid ended up. Hi. So, Calli Horner, 2 years old, last seen around April 30th of this year. Missing person filed on May 14th of this year. Now we find out yesterday that the child has been, hello everybody, has been legally adopted, or they're saying legally adopted by a family in Utah. The mother took her to Utah, gave her to this family, and she came back with a check. So many questions. The child had a father that was involved. He knew nothing about this adoption. Okay, sure, Soul Reaper. Um, so child of the father did not know where she was. Khadijah Horner, her mother, the child's mother, has extended family that was wanting to know where she was, and she lied about all of this, all of this. And the question is why? If you did not want your child and you wanted to give them to somebody who wasn't part of the family, why not tell them? I don't know. So it made me think about the adoption process. Now, I've got some more information about the private adoption agency in Utah that actually handled this adoption for Calli Horner. So that is right here. Well, I had it right here, but go to her page real quick because she's been talking about it. But the adoption agency is private. They are in Utah, and not the whole scenario sounds very, very suspect in my opinion, to be perfectly honest with you, because it's weird how they were able to do this. It really is. But so there's a Cody alert. They tried to put a Cody alert out there, but that didn't work. Why is this not going down? Because I got that. But the woman that actually did the adoption. So, Love and Light Adoptions is a private adoption agency in Kaysville, Utah, and it's founded by a woman named Denise Garza. Hello. Garza previously operated Heart and Soul Adoptions, which had its license revoked in 2018 due to multiple violations, including offering financial incentives to birth mothers and charging adoptive parents for unsubstantiated expenses. I mean, Sean, that's a possibility. I don't know. I don't know. Some people are suspecting that maybe the father of the child knew and was just playing dumb. I mean, I'm not opposed to her adopting her out either. I mean, if she honestly could not take care of the kid, adoption's a much better way to go. But, and however, why did she lie about it to the family? And because this is a private adoption and not something that was done through the legal channels per se, did this child go to a good family? Because you run into so many issues here. And I'm going to go into in the history of all these private adoptions. So let me finish with this, and we'll go into more. So, woman who runs 11 Light Adoptions, who handled Calli's adoption, has already been shut down once, lost her license, then got another license in 2023. And the decision faced criticism from former clients and adoption advocates who expressed concerns about the adequacy and oversight of accountability. Reports from birth mothers have raised additional concerns. One mother alleged that after placing her child for adoption through Love and Light, the agency reduced the promised financial support from 8,500 to 4,200. Utah's adoption laws, particularly the ability to terminate parental rights within 24 hours of birth, have been criticized for creating a human marketplace that may exploit vulnerable birth mothers. Agencies like Love and Light have been accused of operating in this environment, raising ethical concerns about the adoption process in the state. And this is while Love and Light is currently licensed and has passed state inspections without reported violations, ongoing investigations and legislative scrutiny suggest that the agency's practices remain contentious. If you're considering adoption, it's crucial to research thoroughly and consult with legal professionals to ensure ethical and transparent practices. Okay, so we got all that. This case reminded me of the case of Georgia Tann. Now, Georgia Tann ran the Tennessee's Children's Home, and this is back in the like 1930s, 40s, and 50s. She actually was a baby broker. She was taking in unwed pregnant women. They were giving birth, and then she was telling them that their babies died, especially the blonde blue eyed babies. And what she was doing is she was selling these children to parents, making a killing. None of this was legal. She didn't keep any documents. She destroyed a lot of records, and she had a town doctor that was helping her out with this. One person in particular that was one of these babies that was marketed out, and I don't know if any of you are wrestling fans, but WWE superstar, retired now, Nature Boy Ric Flair was one of these children that came from the TAM or TAN adoption agency. Did she go to jail? Who? Georgia Tann? No. She was, once it was found out, and this was like 1950 when this was found out, when she was being prosecuted, she died before she had a chance to really go through a trial. I'm doing all right. So, but there has been about 5,000 children that have been trying to find out who they actually are because of Georgia Tann. Ric Flair didn't do anything. Ric Flair was a child. He was one of those children sold that Georgia Tann sold to his parents. So he doesn't even know where he actually came from because a lot of the records of who these children were have been destroyed. So there is no real record. So some of these kids have found their family. Some of these, they've been doing that ancestry DNA. So that's been one way that they've been able to track down some relatives, but there's so many that really don't know who they actually are, you know, so many. Which also brought up another case that I remember, the Magdalene Sisters Laundry. This was in Dublin, Ireland. This happened, oh God, 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s. This went on for a very long time. But they were ones that were taking in pregnant women, unmarried, and coercing them to sign their rights away. And they were selling these babies to wealthy Americans and anybody else with money all over the world. There was a movie that came out, oh God, 10, 15 years ago called Philomena, and is about a woman in Ireland who had had a child out of wedlock. And she went to this Irish laundry, gave birth there. She stayed there, and they tortured these women. They put them through brutal conditions because they were making them pay penance because they had sex outside of marriage and they had a child outside of marriage. And therefore, in the Catholic Church, you are unclean, unholy, all this other stuff. And she tried to find her son. She did. And in fact, by the movie, she does eventually find him. And here he was adopted by an American family and he was here in the States. And I'm not going to give the ending away, but it goes out and tells you the whole story about what was going on in those laundries. And it's a very thought-provoking movie. No, I'm not considering going into adoption. But just so you know, these private adoption agencies, there are very many that are legit and there's very many that are not. And that is the concern here because the question is, how did Callie Horner get adopted out? Hello, get adopted out without anybody knowing anything. So out of state adoptions, it's a little bit of a process. So there is a interstate compact on the placement of children. It's called the ICPC. No, not at that time. They didn't think about that. I know there's been some Hollywood stars that have gotten children like that. Like Joan Crawford adopted all four of her children. I know at least she had a set of twins that came from Georgia Tan. June Allison was somebody else who had got a child from Georgia Tan. I mean, you're talking about some movie stars back in the 40s and 50s, or 30s, 40s, and 50s. They wanted kids, but they didn't want to give birth. And what's your question? Microwave potato, you have a question? What? Would I rather watch a what? Watch a tree grow or a me grow? Very funny. Anyway, back to this. So that is the organization that handles interstate adoptions. So it's not that easy, but it requires a compliance with the Interstate Compact on the placement of children, a law in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. This ensures that the child placement across state lines are in the best interest of the child and that all legal requirements are met. Utah's Child and Family Services is responsible for administering the ICPC and working with the receiving state to ensure a safe and stable placement. And this is also the same for North Carolina. So this is all how it goes. But before a child can be placed in another state for adoption, both the sending state where the child lives and the receiving state where the adoptive parents live must approve the placement. So my thing is, how did she do this? Because social services was involved with the family. Hello. And social services was involved with the family, and they had no record of her even trying to do this. So how did she do this? Did she lie? Did she say, there was no father? You know, Hi everybody, I'm doing great. That's my question because my sister-in-law had a child that she put up for adoption and one night stand situation. And she had to wait. They had to actually put an ad in the paper and look for the father to announce before anything could be done. And he never responded. So time went past and the adoption went through. But, and that's basically the general thing. Like, okay, if you don't know where the father is or you don't know who the father is, there's ways to work around that. But when you have an active parent involved and social services is aware of this, how does she pull this off? That's what I want to know. Was this actually legal? Does he have rights if he decides to contest this? Because there's been cases where another guy, this happened to him, and he was never notified about any of this, and he lost all rights to his kid, never was able to get it back. So Am I single? No. But that is what's going on with Callie Horner. So she is alive, which is fantastic. Great. We're happy that she's alive. But was the adoption legal? And was it for profit? Because that's my question. This girl's 23, and from what I understand, she had another child she did this with as well. So this is two for two. Maybe she shouldn't have any more kids. Just saying. So that is my take on all of that. But like I said, these private adoptions have been going on for about a century. Nobody's changed anything. And there you have it. So I'm going to hop off here. That's all I've got for today. But Callie Horner is alive. It is terrible. And I will say that, yeah, it is terrifying what happens to children in the foster care system. It really is. Even in the adoption system, because you hear about these cases where these children get legally adopted and then they end up, in very bad situations. So I will never understand how you spend all that time and money trying to adopt a child and then come to find, and then you beat them to death or you leave them to starve or just some crazy scenario. I don't understand why that happens because it's not cheap to adopt a child. It's not. It's like 30, 40, $50,000 at the end of the day. And that's not even including to raise the kid once you have custody of the kid. So I don't know. These are my questions. These are my ponderings. But that's really all I have at this point. So like I said, this subject is a bit off. Well, you know, the whole thing is off. Let's just be clear. Illegal adoptions happen all the time. And I understand private adoption agencies, there's less rules involved because if you go through an adoption agency with the state, they have so many restrictions. They do a health profile, they do genealogy, they do everything. And it makes it hard. Like if you've got a history of heart problems, if you have health problems, you won't be able to adopt a child. If there's anything psychiatric in your family history, they won't let you adopt a child. These type of things, which is why people go to these private adoptions because at the end of the day, it's very quick. So, but like my cousins, I have two cousins my aunt adopted, and that was through Catholic social services. And when the whole Georgia Tan thing came up, made me think about, oh God, did they do that the wrong way? But both my cousins have reached out to their biological families over the last few years and are building relationships with them. So, but I'm gonna hop off here. But that was just what I was talking about today. This is just insane, and the legal rigmarole that's going with this. But be rude, be weird, be rude, be safe. You're from Poland, cool. And be careful and keep hands on your kids, guys. And if you have not subscribed, please do so. It's free, doesn't cost anything, and gets the videos out there for people to see, especially the missing child cases, because missing people cases. I'm in the US here. And there you have it. So I'm gonna hop off here. Bye, everybody. Be weird, be rude, be safe, as I always say. Bye.